Yahya Sinwar is a name that echoes across the embattled streets of Gaza, representing both hope and fear, defiance and division. To his supporters, he stands as a fierce advocate for Palestinian sovereignty. To his opponents, he embodies a relentless militant vision. But what shapes a man like Sinwar, who, after decades behind bars and a lifetime enmeshed in one of the world's most enduring conflicts, became one of Hamas's most influential leaders? Early life and family background. Yahya Sinwar was born in 1962 in Khan Younis, a city within the Gaza Strip. The early 1960s were times of turbulence and political shifts within the region, and Sinwar's upbringing took place against this backdrop. His family lived in poverty, with the conditions of refugee life marking his early years. These conditions deeply impacted his worldview, shaping his outlook on politics and resistance, particularly against Israel. Sinwar's education began in the UN-run schools in Gaza, a common experience for Palestinians in refugee camps. These schools provided basic education, but also served as places where political ideas could spread. Growing up amid occupation, Sinwar quickly became aware of the political struggles his family and community faced. This awareness was particularly heightened following the 1967 Six-Day War, which led to Israel's control over Gaza, joining the Muslim Brotherhood and the foundation of Hamas. During the late 1970s and early 1980s, Sinwar joined the Muslim Brotherhood, the Islamic organization that would later give rise to Hamas. At this point, the Brotherhood had become a strong ideological force in the Palestinian territories, attracting young people who were frustrated by both the occupation and the lack of progress from secular nationalist groups like Fatah. In 1987, the Palestinian uprising known as the First Intifada erupted, a mass movement against Israeli rule. That same year, Hamas was established as an offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, aiming to unite political Islam with the Palestinian cause. Sinwar was among the founding members of Hamas, alongside Sheikh Ahmed Yassin and other influential figures. His role within Hamas focused on intelligence and military organization, and he was integral to the founding of the group's security wing, known as the MAD. MAD operated both as an intelligence arm and as an enforcement body within Gaza, ensuring Hamas maintained control over its factions. Arrest and imprisonment. Sinwar's activities soon attracted the attention of Israeli authorities. In 1988, he was arrested and later sentenced to multiple life terms for his role in various attacks and security offenses against Israel. Sinwar's imprisonment would become a defining chapter in his life, marking nearly 2 decades of confinement. During his imprisonment, Sinwar grew in stature among other Hamas members and Palestinian inmates, becoming a symbol of resistance. His uncompromising stance against any form of conciliation with Israel only solidified his reputation. While imprisoned, Sinwar maintained connections with Hamas leaders and continued to influence its decisions, often through intermediaries. His time in prison deepened his commitment to Hamas's ideological framework and reinforced his personal dedication to resistance. Release in the 2011 prisoner swap. In 2011, Sinwar's life took a dramatic turn. As part of a prisoner exchange between Hamas and Israel, brokered by Egyptian mediation, Sinwar was released along with over 1,000 other Palestinian prisoners in exchange for Gilad Shalit, an Israeli soldier captured by Hamas militants in 2006. This prisoner swap was a significant event, celebrated by Palestinians and particularly by Hamas, as it was seen as a major victory. After his release, Sinwar quickly re-entered the Hamas leadership. Now in his late 40s, he carried the reputation of a seasoned militant with unwavering ideological commitment. His time in prison had made him a hardened figure, deeply suspicious of peace negotiations and committed to the use of force to achieve Palestinian goals. Rise to leadership in Gaza. Sinwar's rise to power within Hamas culminated in 2017 when he was appointed as the leader of the organization in Gaza. His appointment was seen as a shift within Hamas toward a more hardline stance, especially given his history and reputation. Unlike some other leaders who had shown interest in reconciliation with the Palestinian Authority, Sinwar was focused on maintaining Hamas's autonomy in Gaza and resisting efforts toward disarmament or political compromise. As leader, Sinwar faced immense challenges. Gaza's economy was and continues to be under significant strain due to blockades by Israel and Egypt. Electricity shortages, unemployment, and deteriorating infrastructure are daily struggles for residents. Sinwar's approach has been to fortify Hamas's military capabilities, focusing on rocket development, tunnel construction, and other methods aimed at maintaining resistance against Israel. This focus has brought about criticisms from international actors, accusing him of prioritizing militarization over the welfare of Gaza's people. Policies and military strategies. Sinwar's strategies as a leader have reflected his militant background. He has been instrumental in Hamas's development of its military wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades. Under his leadership, the brigades have expanded their capabilities, developing new weaponry and fortifying Gaza's defenses. Sinwar's stance on military resistance has been uncompromising, often leading to escalations with Israel. In recent years, Sinwar has coordinated closely with other militant factions in Gaza, seeking to present a united front. This coordination has not only increased Hamas's capabilities, but also allowed it to present itself as the primary defender of Palestinian rights in Gaza, distinguishing itself from the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. His stance has led to periodic clashes with Israel, resulting in widespread damage and civilian casualties on both sides. Political stance and approach to negotiations. Though he has occasionally shown openness to temporary ceasefires, Sinwar remains a staunch opponent of long-term peace negotiations that would involve disarmament or recognition of Israel. His political vision focuses on the idea of resistance as a continuous process rather than a means to an end. In this sense, he sees Hamas not only as a political organization, but also as a movement of perpetual resistance against what he views as illegitimate occupation. However, Sinwar has also faced criticism within Gaza for the severe economic conditions under his leadership. International organizations have repeatedly warned that Gaza's humanitarian crisis is worsening, with high levels of poverty, limited access to clean water, and inadequate health care. Sinwar's detractors argue that his focus on military strategies has prevented investment in critical civilian infrastructure. Despite this, he has maintained a solid support base within Hamas, as many Palestinians view his commitment to resistance as genuine. Sinwar's role in regional politics. Sinwar's leadership also involves navigating Gaza's complex relationships with other countries, especially Egypt and Qatar. While Egypt maintains strict control over its border with Gaza, it has also acted as a mediator between Hamas and Israel. Qatar, meanwhile, has provided financial aid to Gaza, often stepping in to alleviate humanitarian crises. Sinwar's relationship with these external actors is pragmatic. He accepts aid from Qatar and mediations by Egypt, but remains firm in his ideological convictions. He views these interactions as necessary for survival rather than as steps toward political reconciliation. The complex legacy of Yahya Sinwar. Yahya Sinwar's legacy is still unfolding. For supporters, he represents an unyielding leader dedicated to Palestinian liberation. His resistance to Israeli occupation, coupled with his background as a prisoner and militant, makes him a symbol of defiance. His harsh stance on resistance appeals to many in Gaza who feel that other Palestinian leaders have compromised too much. To others, particularly critics outside Gaza, Sinwar represents an obstacle to peace. His focus on military buildup over economic development has led to suffering within Gaza, contributing to a dire humanitarian situation. The blockades, conflicts, and frequent flare-ups in violence leave civilians in a cycle of poverty and instability. International bodies frequently condemn Hamas's tactics, accusing it of endangering civilians by engaging in violent confrontations with Israel from densely populated areas. For Sinwar, however, his mission is clear. His statements and policies reflect a worldview that prioritizes liberation over peace if peace requires compromise. Sinwar's unwavering stance, while admired by many, also reveals the intractable nature of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, where leaders on both sides hold to their principles even when they lead to hardship. Yahya Sinwar's life, from his beginnings in a Gaza refugee camp to his role as a prominent Hamas leader, encapsulates a story of resistance, ideology, and the intense, often tragic complexities of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. His biography provides insight into the mindset of a leader who sees his role as a duty to resist what he perceives as an occupation, even as it entails tremendous costs. Sinwar's path, marked by imprisonment, military action, and an enduring vision for Palestinian resistance, highlights the challenges and motivations that define one of the Middle East's most controversial leaders. As Gaza continues to grapple with both internal and external pressures, Sinwar remains a defining figure whose actions and policies shape the lives of countless Palestinians, leaving a lasting, controversial legacy in the history of the region.